Solution, so set your love free with the L-O-V-E for the evolution and blessed unity with the L-O-V-E. Love is the solution, so set your love free with the L-O-V-E for the evolution and blessed unity.
Good morning, beautiful people. Welcome back. We are live with the Self-Love Show here. I'm Dawn Light, and my beautiful co-host here, right here, is gorgeous Trish Wright. So isn't that awesome? Dawn Light and Trish Wright, if you haven't noticed. We rhyme. So welcome back to today's show. We're so excited to bring you the impromptu, amazing, deep conversation we're about to reveal about self-sourcing. And it's going to be a juicy one. And in case, this is your first time tuning in, we also have a YouTube channel that you can go and check out all the previous year's shows, which is so exciting, that we're past our year mark and on, which is so exciting. We have amazing guests usually, but we're deliciously dropping in just the two of us today. So super excited to have you with us, and thank you for the viewers that keep tuning in. We love your comments, posts, sharing. Thank you for all you do in the world, showing up and supporting us and letting us support you, because that's what it's all about. So without further ado, I'm just going to give the floor to Trish for a minute and let her say what she needs to say, and here we go.
So this particular topic today is inspired by a couple classes that I taught with Scott last week at the One World Tantra Festival. And, we teach a lot about, how to manage difficult behaviors with other people. We teach a lot about, understanding your veils of past pain. And what has come up is that, there's places where when we get down, when we do the self-empathy tool, do you remember that? Do you guys remember that? We're going to go through it today, because I know we've gotten away from that, but I think it's really important to bring that back in. Is that when you start to learn how to get from your thoughts, your feelings, and into your wants and needs, that when we speak from that place, that sometimes it's actually hard to find what you want and need, and also how do you actually meet your own needs? How do you self-source before you go ask for another person? And I think this is crucial. It's crucial to know how to meet one's own needs, or at least find healthy strategies for self-sourcing. And that was a comment that came up, is how do I do that? How do it was such a concept. It was just so far out in the universe. I was like, oh, I'll teach a class on it. And it just so happened that last night I was like, this is what I'm going to do. So it's spontaneous. It's fun. It's going to be, there's a couple of documents with Love Coach Academy as well that I can share if you want to PM me your email address. But we're going to go through ways to understand how to self-source for you. So if you do want to get a notebook or something, a piece of paper to write on, this would be a good time to do that. Because I really want you to come back from this show or this, hour of your life, your precious, beautiful time, with actually something that you can really understand how to really lean into your own love, right? How to lean into your own self, how to lean in to being in your stable, balanced place.
Centered, connected, sourced.
Yes. And I'm going to see, because this is all sort of spontaneous, I'm going to see if I can bring up some documents as well. It's going to take me a little bit, and I'm going to go like this a lot. But so in relationship, okay, I'm just going to I'm going with it. Good morning, everyone. Take a deep breath in with me if you want. As a society, and as a local and global society, we're taught to be codependent. We're taught to rely on other people. We're taught to put our needs outside. And what that often has a tendency to do is that we're always looking outward for our own value, for our own safety, for our own needs to be met, our own connection. Like we're looking outward all the time, asking for someone else to meet our own needs, to meet our needs. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't ask people to meet our needs. Like we are in relationship, we are in community. Like we cannot live independent, no connection lives. Like this is like human bodies don't work like that. We need co-regulation, and I'm a big proponent for co-regulation, and I'm a big proponent for meeting self and really supporting self before asking another person. And what that has a tendency to do in our life or in our world and in our relationships is that when we meet another person from as well sourced as we possibly can be within ourselves, that person sees the action, that person sees what you've done, and you're not coming from an empty void of a black hole sucking time, energy, and intention, but actually like, Dawn, I had a really scary moment, or you said something. I'll give a real example. You said something last night, which was totally sweet. She asked me if I was okay and was just checking in, and I took it because I was stressed out and really tired, and I took it and I ran with it, and I was like, oh my God, did I do something wrong? Right? Do you remember this conversation?
Mm-hmm.
And so in that place, I recognized, and you were like, no, everything's fine. I was just checking in. At that place, I recognized like, oh shit, I need to just drop back in for a second and self-source my own needs for being productive, being safe, being resourced, because here's this beautiful human who loves me, wanting to help me, and I took it as some sort of attack, right? Does anyone else does anyone else do this? I'm certain that I'm not the only one, but I could be. Right. So,
and, I just want to praise you and acknowledge you for that moment, because you were able to see it really quickly. And it was even over a text message. This was a text message communication before I was dropping into sleep. And we were just checking in with one another. And you totally did it right then and there amongst the text messaging. That's how great our friendship and connection and sisterhood is, that you're able to drop in. And that's so beautiful that you didn't take it and run with it and keep a story going and and then build a wall of separation, because that's what happens with each other. Is if you don't self-source and you move into a storyline in your head, then that's what creates this false wall, and where the other person will feel something is off in your connection, or something is going on, but they don't know exactly what it is. And their intuition is telling them there's something there. And you're in this place of creating a whole internal dialogue and story that's false, and living from that place versus just dropping in going, oh my gosh, I'm really acknowledging I need more private time, or I need more downtime, or I need to do that particular task before I do anything else. Right? Whatever the message is that your spirit is inside telling you.
Exactly. And that's the cool thing about these tools and this work that we do and the coaching that Dawn and I offer, is that like before I was really reactive. And before in my life, like 2 years ago, I was really reactive.
Mm-hmm.
I was really like, instead of responding, but now, after utilizing tools of Love Coach Academy and nonviolent communication and compassionate communication and Gestalt, and working with the tools of
spiritual psychology.
Yeah, sorry, I was like that now, like now we can navigate the waters of relationship. So why we practice these tools for ourselves is so that we can be better communicators in relationship. Again, like we live in a society that has other people. Like if you're not living on the planet all by yourself, you need other people. We need other people. I need other people. Like seriously though. Anybody else have that moment this last year where you're quarantined by yourself and you're like, shit, I really need other people. Like if you had that realization that even as independent as you are, that the connection, physical connection with other people is important. Like go ahead and type it in, raise your hand, or like write that down. It's like, we need the co-regulation, not only just for our nervous system, in our sympathetic nervous system, but we also need it for our social skills and all the work that we do here and that Dawn and I teach. Those tools are the things that we get to utilize in relationships. So you practice them on your own, and then you come to a relationship, and then you're like, oh, I'm making up a story that I'm doing something wrong because you checked in. And it's like it gets through the, I'm going to use this, conflict or the discomfort like that, rather than, me taking it into this morning and being like, oh my God, I thought you were, like this is where we're at. Like, you can build these tools, these qualities. And that's why self-sourcing is so important. Because instead of making her the keeper of my needs and like responsible for them, I was like, wait, I recognize that my reality and her reality aren't matching. Who's having the feelings? I'm having the feelings. So that means I'm the one that needs to be like, well, can I take a deep breath so I can show up for myself and for Dawn in connection?
So the what I'm hearing you share so lovingly about is such a powerful thing, right? The reason why we talk about tools often on the show really is it's put them in your tool belt so that when you have the neuroscience come forward, right? Because your brain is conditioned in a certain way because it's a deep ingrained pattern of protection mechanism. Because the ego is always basically seeking comfort, security, and control, right? And so it will do everything to protect your belief structures that were formed way young years, pre-cognitive, pre-speaking time. Usually we're kind of imprinted from conditions, circumstances, parents, teachers, friends, beloveds in our life, from the material that's going on, and our unconscious is imprinted in a way. And then we spend our life kind of unraveling the neuroscience in our brain around how we're conditioned, because it's like not serving us in our adult years. Like what we learn to protect ourselves and to keep ourselves safe in our childhood it works against us actually in our adult years. And especially when you're in a deep loving relationship or in a committed relationship, you get really close to the mirror of self, and you get to see all the parts of yourself where you're like, oh wow, I do that thing where I disconnect, I abandon myself here when it feels really scary that you're not going to come forward and support me in the way I'm really truly desiring in my heart, right? And so I am afraid to speak up and say how I truly feel. So I'm going to speak a little bit about a coaching session I had this week, actually, about a very similar topic. So my client actually has this very deep ingrained people-pleasing pattern that has come forward so much. She's lived from this place of overextending herself in people pleasing, where she basically gets to, abandon herself and not speak her truth, right? And so all our coaching sessions are about letting go of people pleasing and stepping into her sacred truth of speaking her truth when it's really vulnerable, where she's afraid to say that because she's afraid that she's going to be let down, not heard, not understood, because it's always been a mirror of seeing through the lens of perception of I'm not heard, I'm not seen, I'm not understood. So that plays out in her dynamic where she feels that internally. And so it's really letting go of the construct of people pleasing and stepping into the sacred truth. I'm stepping back inside of myself, and speaking my truth allows me to see and be seen and feel heard completely in this world, right? And that's powerful. That's her reclaiming herself and her power, cleansing her lens of perception around the way she holds and sees herself in the world, and knows that she can reside inside of that. And even if her truth may create a ripple effect in that person's life where they needed to hear that, it impacts their life in a powerful way because it helps them see how they are showing up, right? Or not showing up. right? And that's so important. Speaking our truth is so important. And so this has been a very powerful time for her to peel away all the layers of where she's been afraid to do so. Afraid because she's been rejected in the past in her family member's tight circle, like rejected for how she felt or what her sacred truth was. And the truth is she needs to show up in her family unit in a new way so that they can be seen and they can feel her and know that, gosh, this hurts when you show up this way, and this is my truth, right? And that's so powerful for her to acknowledge that her truth matters and that she can say it in a loving way and deliver a healthy boundary in a place where she was afraid. She was afraid that her love was not going to be met or heard or seen. So that was really key. And this is all about self-sourcing. Bring it back to self-sourcing, right? So anytime she feels that she can't speak her truth, she can go in the bathroom and wash her hands and look in her eyes and say, my truth matters. I can speak my truth in this conversation. And then she can go back out, and that she just self-sourced quickly in the mirror, right? And she can go back out into that conversation and breathe very deeply and be very conscious in her breath when she's engaged in the conversation and say, wow, I've never been able to say this before, but I'm really going to do my best and be brave. I'm going to choose to be brave right here and say something I've never had an opportunity to say. I've been scared actually to tell you this. And this is my truth. And then move forward in it. And you can do it in a loving way, a non-blaming way, and a full ownership of taking ownership of this is how I feel inside, right? So profound.
I love what you're. Is that me?
Oh.
Is that me?
You're back.
Yeah. Can you get the echo? Okay. So what I love what you're saying is that there's beautiful quality about self-sourcing your own needs. Gives you the confidence and gives you this and gives you the trust in your own intuition to know that you can truly say no or pivot to something else that you need or want. So when I self-source, like if I'm asking you to meet my needs all the time, I'm literally reliant on you for everything, for validation, for safety, for connection. And what that does is that if you say no to me, well, that's a lot of pressure for you, one. And that's if you say no to me, then I make it about myself. Like, oh my God, I'm not worthy. She doesn't love me. Like whatever story that we have about it. And I'm going to just I want you guys to hear this piece. It's a lot of pressure for Dawn to hold all my needs.
It's a lot of pressure for anyone to hold. It's just not possible.
Exactly. But I'm hoping that it lands in the way
yes.
that I'm wanting it to land. That it's just too much pressure for another person to meet all of your needs. Now, if I'm like, okay, Dawn, I really need whatever. Instead of you showing up for me in the way that you want to authentically, which is like really true love there, is that you're like, I want to show up for Trish in this particular way. Here's an example. My friend that I'm staying with right now, she loves to make me coffee, and I love that. Because coffee is part of my love language system. Or she'll feed me because I totally do not think about food at all. It's not part of my system. It doesn't live in my brain. And she'll just here's a snack for you. It's amazing, right? Because she's showing up in her authentic love for me. I'm not asking anything from her. Now, the cool thing about self-sourcing is that when I actually get into my center and self-source myself, what I can ask for is so sorry. Shit. Hold on. Let me come back to it. When I self-source my own needs, that when I have an ask, when I have something that I really do need, that I'm clear about it. That it comes from a place of not desperation or some sort of strategy or manipulation to get my need met. I'm actually coming to my persons, my mom, my person, my boyfriend, my whatever, my friend, and I'm saying, wow, I self-sourced my need for connection. And we're going to get into this conversation here in a second, because I know this one's a little bit like, how do you self-source your own need for connection? Like when you self-source your need for connection, when I do that for myself, I'm like, okay, now I'm connected. Then I can show up to you or to show up to someone that maybe I've had a conflict with or some like disrupt, that's the place where I'm like, oh, Dawn, I've done all these things and I'm showing up and I still would love to just sit with you and will you hug me for 10 minutes? Or can we just go sit by the pool? Or, hey, what I really love, this is the thing that I really love. Dawn, I've self-sourced my need for connection. I still want to feel more connected to you. Is there a way we can negotiate reality together? I know being my friend is really weird because I'll say weird stuff like that. Hey, do you want to negotiate reality together? Because just because I might want to be held and hugged and she might not want to do that doesn't necessarily mean she doesn't want to be in connection with me. So if I give the container the opportunity to really like create connection, like she might have another idea. She's like, oh, I want to go get our feet rubbed by, or I know, I'm literally, I know you well enough to pick and choose the things that I know. I'm like, oh, I know you love to get your feet rubbed. And that's a thing. So just because I want to be held, maybe touched or held by Dawn specifically, maybe it's we can go do that together because I know she wants that too. And we're negotiating reality so I can be connected and get touched at the same time. Is this all making sense to you guys? Like, is this, because I know this is, it's totally a spontaneous show and I didn't really plan to show up like this, but it's in the flow. Yay. Okay. So again, another beautiful plug. I want to say that this isn't a Love Coach Academy. Like I'm not running it correctly, and I'm not doing it in a way that has like super structure based on Love Coach Academy. Though there's a lot of teachings from this, from the program, from Scott and from Emily Oram, and who are fabulous coaches as well. And so I'm just wanting to say that it's, it's not strictly their work and it's a little more flippant than that. But I do want to really, share my love and my gratitude for their documents and their work and how they really presented this work in the world. There's that.
Awesome.
So what I would love to do for everyone who's watching, and we're gonna run the self-empathy tool right now. Because what I do want you to come away with is personal strategies for self-sourcing some of these things that are a little weird. And we talked about my strategies for connection. And you're going to hear me say this multiple times over the next zillion years of your time with me on this planet. Because this is part of my own conversation, right? Who's feeling the feelings? So whenever I'm in an upset and I want to project, anybody else relate? Whenever I'm in an upset and I want to project on someone, you made me feel whatever it is that you're naturally doing is making me, whenever I want to project, I'm training myself. I've trained myself to slow down. Who's feeling the feelings? I'm feeling the feelings. So it's being created within myself. Right? So when I get to that point, I'm like, oh, I'm feeling the feelings. I'm feeling disconnected. Who has ever been told, I'm sure you've had this experience, Dawn. Well, maybe you haven't, but I'm not going to assume that. I've had this experience where someone will say to me, you're disconnected. I'm like, wait, I'm here. I have said this, you're disconnected. Do you see that? You're disconnected. Again, who's feeling the feeling? I'm feeling the feeling. So when I say I'm disconnected or you're disconnected, it actually is me acknowledging that I'm the one feeling the disconnect, which is being created inside of me. The disconnect is inside of me. So when I stop, slow down, like, okay, I heard it. What is going on in my head? The chatter of who's disconnected, she's disconnected, they're disconnected from me. which is a pretty painful wound. The abandonment wound is the disconnect, right? And so we get really small and scared, and then, get like bitey or frozen or run, or I'm going to fawn. I'm going to like make some like pretty something to get you to love me, to feel connected again, right? So when I get into that place, I'm like, okay, whatever story, I'm going to run the story. I'm going to get back into my feelings. I'm disconnected. I'm feeling sad. I'm scared. I'm disappointed. Whatever, as we run it through. And then I'm going to get back into my wants and needs and my feelings. Wants and needs and values, right? So let's talk it through. Everyone who's watching, go ahead and take a deep breath in and close your eyes if you can, if you're not driving or working. Just if you take the next 45 seconds to do this particular tool. This one has changed my life and the foundation, one of the foundations of this particular show. So you can just close your eyes and give yourself an opportunity to run the thought. Some, whatever negative thought that you're running on someone or that you're running on yourself. And don't give it too much time because it's just a thought. And as you take a nice deep breath in, let it drop down into your heart. What are you feeling? That thought has a feeling underneath that or attached to it. So for me, you're disconnected. Oh my gosh, you're disconnected. I'm going to run the thought. Oh my God, I'm scared. I'm nervous. I'm feeling like I want to run away. I'm feeling unsafe. So I drop back down now, taking a nice deep breath in, dropping down into my wants and needs and my values. I want safety. I want connection. So what's the want and need that's attached to that feeling? Was it fear? Was it upset? Was it excitement? What is the feeling, the want and need attached to that feeling? Could be authenticity, be heard, to be seen, to be safe, valued. There's so many. Again, I haven't quite figured out how to put up the documents on this particular platform, but it's inspiring me right now to do that. And when you've got kind of the understanding of how to drop into your wants and needs, like, can you type it in or write it down on your piece of paper and just, give that the title. The need for me connection is where we're going to go. What was it for you, Dawn? Because we'll work it through, both of us.
Flow. Feeling
Flow.
a state of flow.
So for me, and I can see how people are like, how do I meet my need for flow? How do I get there? Like it's kind of outside of our normal conversations. Like, oh, I met my need to be fed or to be housed, to have, heart-centered work. Like, these are easy because they're physical actions, right? Or they're things that we can do. Like, feeding myself is easy, theoretically. Maybe not for me, but just teasing and giving you some personal. So,
but it's true. Like, how we relate to ourselves when we're going through the issue is the issue. So it's really like, that is such a powerful thing to apply to self-empathy, right? Self-sourcing, whatever's going on is meeting all the irrational emotions that are coursing through your veins and your body and your brain, and then really dropping into like, how am I relating to myself right now? What am I telling myself? Like, how am I relating to this that is the issue?
Yes. So what we're trying to get out of is this social dependence on another. We're trying to get out of depending or making someone responsible for our own emotions, our own feelings, our own needs. And so now we're at this point where we're like, okay, we did the self-empathy tool, which is literally, honestly, you all, you humans and pets and, plants that are watching in people's backgrounds and whatever living being is out there. That when the first tool that I always run, even if I've upset Dawn or someone else in my life, the first thing I do is self-empathy. Because what I know is that if I don't validate my own feelings and I don't literally get in and self-source, is that I won't have the capacity to actually meet Dawn or anybody else, especially in conflict, with loving compassion. Like if I don't take care of this first, that I won't be able to show up in expanded capacity for whatever you have. And that for me is love. So I'd be like, okay, we had some sort of something. I perceived some disconnect between us. The disconnect is happening within me. Now what do I do? Now I'm going to, give myself the opportunity to show up for me in connecting to self. Now, some of my strategies, and don't get me wrong, like it took me a little while to define them, right? So if you had the strategy, or if you had the need for connection or belonging or safety, or I invite you right now to walk through with me right now. And close your eyes again. Take a nice deep breath in. Write down or think about, we'll write it down in a minute. Think about the times when you felt the feeling or felt the want and the value that you're needing to be met. What was happening in your life when you were in flow? What was happening in your life when you were feeling connected or safe? What were the physical actions? What were you doing? And how were you taking care of yourself in that moment? What was happening in your life? And take some mental notes there. So this is how we start dialing back, how we understand how to get what we want within ourselves. Now, when you open your eyes, I invite you to take a couple notes just on whatever popped into your head, because this is important. Now, for me, when I'm feeling disconnected or projecting disconnect on another, like their disconnect on another person, it means that I'm feeling confused. It's generally that it lives with confusion. It lives with feeling unsafe. And it's a direct pointer for me not giving myself time to do the things that make me feel in my body and cared for. So some of my strategies for connection, I'm going to immediately go into breath. I'm like, okay, stop. And the practice, and I know that you have a practice like this too. So in Gestalt, they have a practice of awareness. And so I just drop in, this is also a practice that I've been doing in my PTSD triggers, like around fear and trauma. And, there's a lot of stuff that I've had in my life that makes me like, okay, So I take a deep breath, I slow down, and I start noticing. It's the first step for me. It's like, okay, I know that I'm disconnected. What can I do here? And I stop and I take a minute or two or maybe three. Maybe it's like sometimes I'll go to a bathroom or a public bathroom if I'm in public. Sometimes I'll sit in my car. Sometimes I'll just, back away into a spot that I can just take some time. Like this is a real life example, right? Sometimes I'm on the street and there's so much overwhelming, stimulation that I'm just like, okay, I need to go find some place. So I take a step back, I close my eyes, and I start noticing. What does it feel like when I'm expanding my lungs? What am I noticing? So I'm noticing sound. I'm noticing my friend type on a computer right now. I'm noticing that my body's feeling warm. I can feel the dress touching my skin. I'm noticing the sensation in my chest of feeling disconnection, which feels tight. I'm noticing. I'm noticing. I'm noticing. While I'm taking really expanded breaths. Right? And that right there, to drop into my body, gives me a whole lot of access to what's really going on. so that when I open my eyes, I'm like, okay, where am I? I'm in my friend's apartment. There's a blue and white carpet. I feel safe. Am I safe? And sometimes I ask, am I safe? This is safety. There's no actual threat right now. So that's my first strategy for connection, is to connect with my body, right? Is everyone, like, are you following here?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe for flow, like I would love to hear what you do for flow, and we can weave this conversation in and out. And if you guys are really wondering how to meet your need for blank, whatever it is, type it in and we'll directly talk to it. Take it away, Dawn.
Well, for me, like this is something that I've been experiencing. I've been craving the need for a more like state of flow, and I'd been working at the computer for hours yesterday. I'm just going to use this as an example. And I just was like, that's it. I'm done at the computer. I need to break away and not have screen time. I need to get into like that state where it just feels expanded and flow and connection for myself and my son. So I was like, let's go on a bike ride, and I just shifted gears for myself, and I just put my hand on my heart and allowed myself to experience what I wanted, and was like, okay, I can give myself permission here to like create this for myself, because it's just a limited perspective to think that it's not available, right? And it is available. And I also knew it was available for myself, and it was so joyful. We just went on a lovely bike ride together, and like the air was perfect. And just how you were speaking about being in that moment of just breathing and noticing your surroundings, I was doing the same thing when I was riding my bike. And I was also going a step further, and my son didn't even know I was doing this, but inside myself, when I was riding my bike, I was actually acknowledging myself for the hard work I was doing, for just all the parts of my life that I needed acknowledgement for, right? Because it's like no longer needing it from an outside source. I can self-source myself and give myself self-acknowledgement, right? That I don't need to be acknowledged from someone else. Like I can actually acknowledge myself, right? So where am I needing acknowledgement? Inside of myself. And so I started to praise myself, or we call this in USM prizing. So I was prizing myself for really being dedicated to creating a program that I'm building, being dedicated to my work, just acknowledging myself for all the love I'm pouring into this beautiful container that Spirit is directing me to create, right? And it's like I'm self-directed in that way. And I was really acknowledging myself for all the energy and time that it has taken me to get to this place in my life. It's not just a 1 or 2 day process. This is years of work. So it's like, wow, I really was acknowledging myself when I was riding the bike. Like, thank you, Spirit. Thank you for all the love and dedication you've poured into my loving container to get me to this point where I can have balanced work life, right? I just worked for so many hours, and now I'm creating balance and flow in my life by loving my child and going on a just delicious bike ride together and getting him ice cream, which is his favorite thing, and it was just so joyful. We took our dog. My dog fits perfectly in my basket on the back of my bike, and like it's just the cutest thing. So it was just like, there it is. Like I didn't need another activity or thing on the schedule, right? Because that's like linear. My brain wanted to break away and have just a free state flowing moment. And that's what I was craving. And that's where the inspiration comes. And I notice I'm tuned in at a greater level in my intuition when I'm in flow state. And that's where like you get really deeply activated, you get creative ideas like that. Oh, this is my own thing. So like, this is what happens for me when I'm in that flow state, and why I crave it so much. And so yeah, we can give it to ourselves. We don't have to believe that it's not available. And so it's available at any moment. When you're not feeling it and you're not feeling aligned, that's when you let go of pushing, right? Because it's dropping away from that pushing. I have to, I should, I've got to. If you're telling yourself that, then that's not the place. So lean back in and say, what do I really need here? Oh, I'm really needing a sense of like some free time. I'm needing a sense of really to take care of myself here in a way that I never knew I needed. And that's like to go take a shower or, to self-care in whatever way that is. And that will bring you back into alignment to where you can move forward with empowered, powerful, decisive, clear action forward because you're being directed by spirit. But when you're feeling like all jumbled and it's too much and like, I can't do it, that's a place where you self-source.
I love you. What I love about your shares is that you come from a parenting standpoint as well, because I know that I can't come from that place because I don't have children. I would like to also just say that, I don't believe, and I'm going to speak for you as well, and you can totally correct me if I don't. I believe that self-care and self-love isn't about getting your nails done and getting a haircut and doing face masks. Self-care is really showing up for you when you're freaking triggered.
When the meltdown is happening.
Is being kind, loving, choosing love for yourself when things are falling apart, as well as when things are good. So when you're in like this hyper, like everything's good moment, and you know that there's that time when you like overdo it. I'm speaking for myself, hold on. When you know that there's a time when you overdo it and you're like, oh, how can I care for myself when I'm stacking my schedule? Can I actually take a break? Put 2 hours every day to do whatever my brain needs to do. Sometimes it's doom scrolling on Facebook. So I'm just like scrolling and my brain's not doing anything. Some people watch television. Some people like these are also strategies, not necessarily strategies for connection for me. That's a strategy of disconnect, right? Of just letting my poor little brain like. I want to speak a little bit to some of the other strategies from my strategies for connection. And these are very personal to me. And how I did that was walking it back from when did I feel safe? When did I feel connected? What is happening in my life? How am I behaving in this place of something that I want? So another one for me is, you said it, Dawn, a shower. I'll put some music on and get in the shower. And I'll dance around for 7.5 minutes in my shower and like get into my body and like just be whatever it is. Sometimes I'll put a 3-minute timer on for meditation. Now, if I'm really, really triggered and there's a lot moving in my life, sometimes meditation doesn't work because my brain is like, where else it's going. Sometimes I'll put on this Ram Dass meditation that's 25 minutes and I will just set a 30-minute timer and just allow myself to rest on his words. Sometimes it's dancing. It's some type of, it's journaling. Sometimes I just need to like dump all the stuff out of my brain onto a piece of paper. Like there's different ways. Sometimes some of them are exercise. Some of them is just like a timer to drink some water. Like for me, the connection to self or the connection is generally embodiment because I can get very heady. Does anyone else get very heady and disconnect from their everything else? Their head.
Embodiment practices are where it's at. Like that gets you back into center, connection. It's like you can't solve your same problem or issue you're experiencing from your mind. It's not going to be in your mind. It's going to be deeply connecting to your soul and lining back up in the soul line energy and listening from within, from spirit inside, right? Like the intuitive voice inside. And sometimes it takes like pounding a pillow on the floor when you're pissed off and angry and you need to get it out and screaming into the pillow, right? And like, but that's a healthy expression of anger. Yes. It's like, and you can drop down when you're angry, right? When you're angry and you feel like it's bottled up and you don't know where to put it because you don't want to hurt someone with your anger, but you need to express it and not just stuff it, because stuffed, repressed anger turns into disease later in life, right?
Yes.
Because it's unfelt, unmet, unheard. And the thing is usually that anger is really deep sadness or sorrow that's not been felt or not expressed, right, for a very long time. And so it's coming up in this very angry expression, but you need to give it a healthy voice, right? Give it a full, like, I just was feeling like, this is a few weeks ago, I was really frustrated with some things, and I just took the pillow and like beat the crap out of the floor, and I was by myself. I went for it. I had my own, I almost like lost my voice because I just was going for it for so much, but it's a healthy form of getting out the frustration that I felt. And underneath that, I was able to drop into a deep place of then I just had tears streaming down my face because I was allowing myself to access the sorrow and sadness that I needed to feel. And so that's a good way to go about it. If you're having that moment, so healthy. I even direct my clients. Like, I've had clients go for it. Like, literally on the Zoom, I'm like, okay, set aside everything, move all your everything. I want you to get a pillow right now. And I will coach you, and I will take you there. I will keep coaching you and keep coaching you and keep saying the thing that's really going to get you to access it. And then you step into it and you're like, holy fuck, this is where excuse my language, but this is where I've been holding myself back my whole freaking life.
Yes. Anger is sacred. Sadness is sacred. Like,
There's so much power in there. There's such a powerful teaching in there. Do not ignore it.
What I've been most sad about in my spiritual journey, and maybe you've heard this on the show before, is that the spiritual community told me, like, the teachings of the spiritual community. I got a lot from my community as a new age spiritualist when I was, like, over the last 10 years. There was like a little whisper that anger is not sacred, healthy, or allowed. Like, it's not spiritual. It's not, enlightened to be angry. And what that actually did for me is it shut me down, and it created it created so many problems and a lot of self-hate. Like, this particular thing, that little whisper, was so destructive in my life that it took me, I've been through some crazy things, some rapes, some abuse, and that particular piece took me so long to unravel, because one of my strategies for belonging was to belong to a community that values that I idolized. So the anger piece, I didn't even get in touch with my anger until like 4 or 5 years ago. Whoa. I didn't have strategies for healthy anger expression.
It took me a long time as well.
So what anger tells us is that there's a value under that. There's something that wants to be met. Like, if I'm really angry, like, oh, here's something that I get really angry about. If I see someone hurting children, old ladies, old people, or animals, I lose my shit about it. Like, I just get angry. Like, and I don't, like, I'm not going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe you're angry. God doesn't love you because you're angry. Like, why would I say that? I'm a human being. I have cortisol and adrenaline. I have chemistry that runs through my body. This is just how it works. Now, there's ways to do it. I'm not going to like go hurt someone, and I'm not going to go project my anger onto someone, because that's called abuse. What I am going to do is I'm going to be like, okay, I'm going to go self-source my upset. Like, I'm going to go self-source, get down into my wants and needs feelings, and, I'm going to validate my whole humanness. And what I value is care. What I value is community, belonging, and taking care of the people who don't have voice, right? Like, I'm taking care of, because I know that they don't, children and animals can't say no. They don't understand, like, if they're really young, right? They can't say no. They can't say yes. They're not consensual. So we have to be in tuned and aligned with them. Mm-hmm. And so I want to protect them. Like, I have not a savior piece, but hey, they're living their life. They're doing their thing. They may be like crazy little humans, or like, whatever kind of dogs or cats or whatever. I want to know that they're safe. I want safety. That value for safety is really up. That protection. Do you see how it's coming up? And I'm like, oh, okay, can I self-source my own need for safety? And how can I advocate? So the time when I can advocate most for another person, especially if I am upset, is to actually take care of myself first. Like I got to get through the upset or through the cortisol and adrenaline and let it flow out in a safe container. Probably, somewhere I'm going to do a hand scream in the bathroom if I'm in public. That looks like this. So you all know, I'm going to go get that out for 10 minutes, come back and be like, okay, now. And if it's in the moment, how do I source that in the moment? Like I can't, if someone's beating their dog, like I'm not going to go I'm not going to go in the bathroom and self scream and whatever. I'm going to come up and be like, hey, is it necessary for you to beat your dog? Can I buy you a book about dog training? Is there anything that we can do here? I would probably interject myself into that, just so you know how this works. I don't know if I'm suggesting you do that, but this is how I would do it. Now, we're going to come back to self-sourcing your needs. So again, the strategies, self-empathy is crucial here. And then coming back to, how did I self-source connection, belonging, and safety before? Now, safety is a really big one. Let's talk about that. If I feel unsafe, in my life, I have felt very unsafe. I have had many, many experiences that have been unsafe. Now, some of these strategies for meeting our own needs is a place where I've moved from fearful avoidant and I'm moving towards secure attachment, right? Like if someone tells me they don't want to date me anymore, my ego wants to take it personally, but I don't allow it to control my life because I'm secure. I'm more secure than I ever have been, right? So this is why we're teaching you these things, or this is why we're giving you an opportunity here. So when you come back in, so self-sourcing safety, if I'm unsafe, like if I find myself in a position where I feel unsafe, now there's places of being truly unsafe and I'm in between a gunfight, and then there's perceived unsafety. Now, if I'm in between a gunfight, I'm going to literally remove myself from the situation. I'm literally just going to remove myself. Oh, this is an unsafe situation. Now, if it's with someone that you love, if you're conscious and aware enough to say this, Dawn, I love you. I need to go self-source. I'll come back. If you can kind of just have something that you say there that's reassurance, what you need, reassurance that you'll reconnect. That right there helps a lot. Because then, it's not going to stimulate any of her abandonment stuff or any of her disconnect stuff, but it's me addressing it. I love you. I'm invested in our relationship. I need to go take care of myself. I promise I'll come back in. And you don't have to give a time frame. Sometimes it's helpful. I'll check in an hour. I'll check in 2 days. I'm freaking out. Now, perceived safety issues. Again, for some of us who've been traumatized or who've had experiences that have left us with filters, lenses of perception, and veils of past pain, for some of us who lived through those, I shared an experience, or I shared a story at a festival just yesterday around being treated like a submissive woman and having someone tell me something that they wanted me to do without just telling me what to do. And it totally triggered me. And I was like, perceived unsafety. I love this person. This person loves me. It was an intimate situation. He didn't mean to trigger those things. It is happening inside me. Who's feeling the feelings? So what happens there is that I get a choice. Now you can train yourself in the moment. You get to train and repattern and reprogram and reparent yourself in the moment. And it takes time. So be gentle with yourself as you repattern these things. It's so after knowing that I can feel unsafe, I have lists in my phone and in my diary and in my journal of ways to self-source safety, ways that I can self-source connection, ways that I self-source flow, authenticity. Like I got these things so I can revert back to them. Okay. So the way that I dealt with the situation of feeling unsafe is I spoke to it. Dawn, I'm feeling unsafe. For whatever reason. Can we just stop, slow down and breathe? Like I need to get into my body. I'm feeling. And the best way, like for me to do that is not to say I'm feeling scared, but also a sensation frame. I'm feeling tightness in my chest. I want to run away. I want to run away. Like my body wants to run away. I don't want to run away. I'm really scared. Mm-hmm. Which gives her, now I'm going to give you the breakdown of this particular thing. What it allows is for intimacy to be created. If I'm brave enough to share my inner workings with her, my vulnerability at the corest, deepest part of it, that allows her to choose. I'm not saying that every person's going to be safe or hold you in that. But that's called discernment. I know that Dawn's safe, and I know that she wants to be in intimate connection with me. Again, intimacy is not, sexual or physical or anything like that. Intimacy is vulnerability plus trust. That's how it lives for me. Mm-hmm. So if I'm brave enough to say, Dawn, I'm scared. I'm feeling tight in my chest. I want to run away. That she loves me. She wants to be there, and she's not triggered herself. She's like, oh.
Can you tell me more about that?
What do you need? Now, if I'm alone or if I'm on the phone and something's triggered me, how do I self-source my safety for me? Okay. Hold on. I have to move now in the middle of the show. Sorry. This is what happens when you're in some fluid moment. Sorry, everyone. That if I'm feeling unsafe, and I can self-source my own safety. Again, that's embodiment practices. That's finding a place, looking at my list of things that are safe. So for me, safe sometimes can be alone. Sometimes safety means that I'm reaching out to Dawn, texting a friend. Sometimes safety means that I remove myself from the situation. Sometimes safety will look like this. I'm safe. I'm here with me right now. And I'll never make a big choice in a place where I feel unsafe.
I'm going to add something really beautiful to what you're doing right now and take it even further, because you're repatterning your brain when you do this. So to remind yourself that whatever the emotional material surfacing in that moment that you're repatterning, tell yourself, I did nothing wrong.
Yes. Because
that is the shift in your brain that is going to help you actually repattern that part that believes it's unsafe when someone speaks those words to you, where you then believe that you're not safe because it's something someone said that will trigger that feeling inside, right? And that's where the abandonment piece comes in, where you're abandoning yourself to believe that you're not in connection and that you're not safe and you're not, right? And so what you can do to repattern when you're doing that, I'm safe, I'm present right here, I'm love, I am love, right? Leaning into just trusting and knowing that you're love, and remind yourself that whatever had happened in the past, I did nothing wrong. Right? And I can let go of believing that I'm wrong, bad, whatever it is that you believed from that time period, right? Because it's when we deeply identify, our ego is created an identification, a crystallized structure in our identification where it's a misidentification actually, and it's something we deeply believe about ourselves, and it keeps getting re-triggered through other people until we are aware enough to see, oh wow, I believed such and such about myself. Now I can let that go. Yeah.
Yes. See, I'm hoping that what you're getting right now again is that you're finding some ways or some understanding of how to self-source some of your more subtle needs. And yeah, there's just like ways that, like, what do you need to feel safe when you travel? What do you need to, feel free and heard when your child is screaming? Like, what do you need here? And if we can find the strategies, and so sometimes, and what, oh, here, I'm gonna finish the thought, I swear. What happens when we start to self-source, that we can communicate those needs as well, or we can communicate those strategies. And that allows us to feel really connected. That allows us to feel more vulnerable and intimate with another person. So if I say, Dawn, sometimes I get overwhelmed by sounds and movement, and what I generally need is to stop, to literally just like pause and like freeze frame. And so when I do some weird thing like where I'm freeze framing, she knows that I'm coming back into self-regulation. That it no longer becomes like, I should be weird again. Like it becomes this opportunity to become more connected. I once read a meme that said, and you probably have read it if you guys are on Facebook, if you're watching this on Facebook, that you probably read the one where it's learning someone's triggers or learning someone's trauma is learning to love them better. Because there's things that we hear or things, I mean, not saying that you shouldn't go about living your life like trying not to trigger someone, but I'm not going to, if I know that touching Dawn's nose is going to send her into a freaking like PTSD trigger fit, I'm probably not going to do that as much if it's like a natural thing that I'm going to do, right? You know what I mean? It's like, good.
Oh, I was just going to share about a vulnerable thing that I had a PTSD trigger around for a very long time in my life. And just to give you a real clear example of how it actually showed up in my world, in my life. So as a child, I had this very physical experience as a young one where my dad would punish me with time and math, literally, and ask me what time it was, and then literally beat me until I saw the time, and then stop and ask me what time it was. And like over and over for like an hour, this went on. And so it conditioned me in a very, very traumatic way as a child, where I literally had so much shame. I held so much shame around not being able to tell the time on the clock as a young one. And it affected me mathematically for a very long time. Like in high school, I was in the lowest math class because I had literally PTSD shock and trauma around, because he would psychologically torture me in that way as a young one. And this is why child abuse is real, and people that really survive horrible things. And this is why I'm a coach in this way. And this is why I help people rewire their brain, because I've been through this in my own life. And I'm not bringing it forward to create shock or stress in anyone's life, but it's a very, PTSD triggers are real for people. And so it conditioned me to be very, I would just drop into this fearful fight or flight, just complete state of freeze. Like, and you could see it like a deer in headlights. Like I would have no connection because I had to go so deep in myself at that time to survive the moment, that I learned to completely detach myself from the real world circumstance to survive. And so as an adult, I started to repattern and rework, and it took me a very long time in my adult years to be able to experience coming home to myself in this place and remind myself that I'm safe, when and then I got into college and I got great professors, and I passed government class and did all the things, right? And I can honestly say I'm a college graduate, you know what I mean? I repatterned this part of my brain, and it took me a long time. And I'm so grateful because my husband has been by my side, and now I can tell time on a clock, no problem. Like I can look at it and tell it, you know what I mean? I don't have that issue anymore. But I just wanted to bring that forward in a vulnerable state to be able to share that, PTSD triggers for people that have had traumatic things go on in their life are real, and how we can really help someone when they're experiencing it. If something you say accidentally triggers someone in your life, for a memory to flood forward where they're like literally in shock or frozen or whatever's going on for them, where they're living in their story, or they're re-experiencing a part of that memory coming forward, that it's safe and it's okay, and you can remind them in the moment that they did nothing wrong, and that statement alone, that I just had to tell myself I did nothing wrong in those moments. And it really gave me such a sense of like homecoming, that I'm safe, that I can experience time and math in a healthy way in my life. And that it was just my dad's really unfortunate way of he was trying to teach me something and did it in a very disconnected way. And he was terrified. He didn't know how in his own self, how to be a parent, really, and how to be emotional. He was so disconnected from his own emotions that he could not be connected to me in that way. And I have forgiveness for him now. And he's passed on, and my guide now helping me. But, God bless you, Dad. You know what I mean? People really show up to the best of their ability, even in their most disconnected way, because that was his own trauma surfacing and coming forward that he didn't know how to hold or handle. And he was projecting it onto me as a young one. And so I just am honestly so proud of myself and my brother who endured child abuse, because now I can honestly say I'm a fucking amazing parent. I don't beat my child. I'm loving, I'm compassionate, I'm kind, I'm caring, I'm connected, right? And that's it. That's breaking the chain of the dysfunction. Right. And so I just want to bring that forward for you to give whoever's watching and hearing this. This is a powerful message that if you want to do this work in your world, where you want to lay down the patterns of oppression, shame, self-blame, self-doubt, distrust, that's the work we do. And that is real and solid and substantial, and it will absolutely change your world forever, where you are no longer relating to yourself in the same way that you used to, where you can shift gears in your life and change everything on the outside, so that you've changed it on the inside, so you're no longer having to experience the patterning in the way you did. Oh, you're on mute, honey.
I'm just saying this is a great place is if you want more of this work and you want to build a community around self-sourcing and building inner trust and your intuition and your confidence and repatterning all that trauma, you're welcome to join our free Facebook group, and I'm going to drop it in the chat right now. Just so you know.
Yay! Come on in and join us. This is the sacred gift, this is the work we're doing with these beautiful women. And it's so profound, because we all have places where we have abandoned ourselves in our past and our conditioning. We all have places where we've had self-doubt. We all have places where we need to cleanse the lens of perception around how we're showing up for ourselves in the world, and what's creating that disconnect or that pattern that keeps surfacing, whatever it may be for you.
What I really want to drive home for this is that the strategies to self-source, or the strategies to get your needs met, are really personal. And some of the things that work for me might not work for you. And some of the things that work for Dawn might not work for me. And it really is the self-awareness, the journaling, the understanding of oneself to get to the strategies. And sometimes you're going to have to pivot and kind of renegotiate your own strategies to get these things met. And I know that because it's kind of weird, like, oh, I self-sourced my need for connection. Sounds a little weird. I could get that. And if you really want to move from, attachment styles or codependency or places that are holding you in unhealthy relationship patterns with yourself or with others, it's really going to take a lot of you being more like self-sourcing and being more clear with when you speak to how to get your needs met with another person, right? Again, I never want to say that we can do it all on your own. I don't believe that. It's not the truth for me. What I do believe is that when we learn how to really support and love ourselves in the best way we can, and we ask others for help from a place of being, as Scott would say, more resourced, then it just shifts the dynamic, right? And I know that I've said this multiple times in multiple different ways, but I really want to drive that home. Scott always asks the conversation, like at the beginning of the conversation, whatever we're doing, whether it's business or friendship or whatever, how well resourced are you right now on a scale from 1 to 100 percentage? And then you can negotiate how you want to. Maybe it's just time for fun and play, or maybe it's just time for silence. If I'm like at 2% resourced or at 10, which is never, but sometimes, or 5 or 10 or under 50% resource, even 50%. If I came to you and said I'm 50% resourced, is that the time when you would be like, let's have a deep, intense conversation? No. If you ask that question, like, hey Dawn, how well resourced are you right now? And you were like, I'm 80% resourced. I'd be like, oh, now might be a good time. Do you have time, capacity, and desire to have this deep conversation that I've been wanting to have with you?
Beautiful.
And she gets a choice, right? Because I know that I'm not gonna make it about her, and I'm also resourced. I'm not coming to her like in my upset, 20% resourced, like flaming pissed or flaming sad or like whatever's happening. I'm not coming to her from this place of like, meet my needs. I'm not coming from that place. What I'm coming from is like, I'm still upset. And this is how you get to it. Like, you can be more direct and honest about where you're at as you self-resource. It's not about being perfect. It's not about being 100% spiritual and no upset or anything. No, it's not about that at all. What it is about is coming with honesty and vulnerability. Dawn, I'm still upset. And my desire for connection, I've gotten into my body. I've done my strategies that look like da 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 da. And my desire for connection here is more important than my desire to disconnect from you. I'm still upset. And I'm wondering if you can just hear what's going on for me. And when I use Dawn as an example, we're not having any conflict, but she's here with me, right?
Yes.
And you can see how a conversation like this would actually work. And I know that you're like, how do you do that when you're fucking pissed? Well, practice.
You go a little slower. You practice and you slow down and you go slower and you put your hand on your heart and you make the commitment to choose to do what's difficult and say actually in the moment, wow, I'm really triggered. And I care about our connection and I need to go self-source.
Profound. It shifts relationships. And when you and your person are using this language, persons, whatever, humans, it doesn't quite work with dogs. I've tried. I'm working on it though. So the dog whisperer gets it, but I don't. That when you start to work with another person with it, when you share the same language and the same tools, that right there gives you an opportunity to not take it personally, right? And that's a big place. Is like I can't take Dawn's need for self-sourcing personally.
Ding, 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 ding.
And when I offer reassurance, it's more likely, even if she's not using the same language, right? It's more likely that she won't take it personally or feel like my needs are a threat. I know this is it might be complex to understand because it's taken me some time to practice these tools. And I invite you, if it's still unclear or if you still want more information about it, you're welcome to reach out to Dawn, me, or Scott. Scott, I know, is really busy and I know he's not taking new clients. But if you want to reach out to Dawn and I, like it would be a really great place to really start to define your strategies for self-sourcing to, and really clearly unhinge the codependency that we're all taught socially. So again, self-sourcing doesn't mean that we're independent, we don't need others. Co-regulation is real. Like we live in communities with other people, so we have to develop our own sense of internal balance as well as so that not as well as but and as well as and so that we can be in loving, compassionate connection and use tools with others. We live in this kind of society. Compassionate games, compassionate connections, moving towards unity and love. This is what this looks like.
Beautiful.
I love you all so much. And I know this is more of a conversation today. And I just felt it so, it was really inspired by the One World Tantra Festival folks that we were on last night. And I hope this helped. If it did help, share it out. And if it didn't help, go ahead and send me some feedback. I always love that. And I really appreciate you taking the time for yourself. Like, give yourself a good pat on the back for writing down some of those strategies and for really looking at your stuff, and taking, the last hour and 16 minutes to really show up, to choose to live different for yourself.
Yeah.
You don't have to do this alone. There's a lot of support and opportunity out there. So please reach out to someone if you need help, to someone who's safe and loving, supportive. If you need help finding people like that, reach out. But there's a lot of ways. Again, if you send me your email in a PM, or if you send me something in one of these comment threads, I will send you the documents as well. Yeah. Thank you all. Thank you, Dawn Light, for always showing up in awesomeness. You're just brilliant, and I love you.
I love you too.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott and Love Coach Academy, for being a muse and for being a mentor, and just
for everything. Thank you for the way you hold space for so much love and capacity in the world, Scott. You're amazing.
Yes. I really want to thank Sign Network, Global Days of Unity. I really want to thank Unify. There's John and Summer Raymer for your work in the world, for networking. Like I love you guys. You guys are amazing. And what you're doing is really, really profound. Well, thank you all. We have an amazing guest next week on Thursday. And do you have anything you want to share, Dawn?
No, just have an amazing week. So much love and gratitude. Oh, and please go to our YouTube channel, like and subscribe. We are so excited to have you, and just check out all the previous shows. It's growing every day, so we'd love to have you there. And come on into our Facebook group. We're so excited to have you in there, and share and see all the beautiful things that we've presented. Super excited to have you.
Catch you guys next week. Next Thursday morning at 10 a.m. Bye.